Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about manga and anime and Sneaky Pete. So, Sneaky Pete is a show that was on Amazon.com. There's spoilers in this. Just want to get that out there. So, Sneaky Pete is this show on Amazon.com, and it is about con artists. And there was a scene that shocked me in the show, and so I need to preface this a bit. So I am an anime fan. My anime fandom comes from Star Blazers. I watched that when I was a kid, and I've watched all the Studio Ghibli material. And in addition to that, I'm a big Mobile Suit Gundam fan. I've watched Outlaw Star. Basically, I have my own slice of anime that I enjoy, right? And I think anime is really cool. It's a really neat. It shows you another culture and all of that. I don't actually read manga, but I will define these terms. Manga, I'll say it that way. So manga is the Japanese comic books. It's these black and white comic books that are made by the Japanese, and they're brought over by companies like Shonen Jump. And they're converted into readable. They're in the same format. They look like a small graphic novel, and they're readable. And often the best ones are readable from right to left. Right? They read opposite the way an American book would. But in Sneaky Pete, there was this character named Carolina. Carolina she is essentially a con person. And in the show, she is doing a con with the main character, who is Giovanni Ribisi's character, and his name is Marius Josipovic. And so Carolina is helping Marius, right? And so she's a con person. And there's this point where she needs to go talk to another con person in a bookstore, right? So she is with another character who is a guard. Now this guard, he is a brigand. He is a bad guy, right? He's a heavy man, right? So he actually is the bodyguard for this guy. Actually, he is a guard and a servant of this guy named Vince, who owns a poker shop, or actually an illegal poker room, right? Like a secret poker room. And so, all this is going on, and Carolina goes to talk to another con person, but she's going to talk to her at a bookstore, right? So she goes to the bookstore, and she wants to lose this guard, right? And it was just kind of surprising to me. This guard, is Vince's guard, and she says, hey, I need to get a book. I'm going to go in and get a book, and the guy says, hey, do they have manga, right? And she says, do you mean that Japanese stuff that that every grown man should be ashamed to read, right? And I was like, whoa, Now this statement was, and he just kind of and so the guard shrugs his shoulders and just stays where he is and does not go in with her, right? Now it's interesting because I think she actually chose this saying so that he would stay out and to dissuade him from coming in. But the thing that was funny was, I go to Otakon every year, and Otakon is it's one of the largest anime conventions in the United States of America. It was previously held in Baltimore. About 35 to 50,000 people show up every year. It is massive, right? And basically, you have the vast majority of East Coast anime fans. And really, people coming from all over the world. I mean, last year when we were there, I go with my older son. He's a big anime fan as well. And there were people from Korea. There was people from Japan. There were people from all over the world, and definitely all over the United States of America. And they do these panels, and in the panels they talk about prejudice about manga and anime. And I had never seen this prejudice, right? Rather than people being prejudiced about manga or anime, they're just ignorant of it, right? Now, and I don't mean ignorant like, oh, that person is bad or foolish or anything. I mean, they just don't know about it, right? Like, So generally, people don't really have a high amount of knowledge about manga and anime because it's really not everyone's niche, right? Now, it does seem to be becoming more and more mainstream all the time. But I was shocked to see this in the show, even as a choice that she's making in order to lose somebody. To say it that blankly, I was just really shocked because, like, they hold panels about this all the time at Otakon. They're like, oh, we know you're repressed and put down because of your manga and your anime. Now, one of the things that's interesting is I just mentioned all the manga. Cowboy Bebop is another anime that I'm into. So I mentioned the manga and the anime that I'm into, and basically it's mostly sci-fi. Many of this stuff has been brought over by companies like Disney, companies like Cartoon Network, like that. Now, I know there is some anime and there's some manga that people should not be proud to read, but I do think that's the subset. It's just like in America, there are romance novels and there are novels that are even more racy than that. But that's not all there is to it. There's great stories that are told through manga and anime. And so I really enjoyed the show, Sneaky Pete, but I was shocked by this one moment in the show where she just devastates this manga fan. And it was really interesting but I think overall, my point is, I really liked the show Sneaky Pete, but I was really disappointed in the show for this particular aspect. And the reason why is you could write off what Carolina said as, oh, she was trying to lose him. She was trying to make sure that he didn't come into the shop with her so that she could talk to this other con person privately, right? But the problem is, Vince's guard is a bad guy. He routinely beats people up because they didn't pay off a loan shark debt. He carries a gun. He's constantly threatening people. He's a brigand. He's a bad guy, right? And so to have this really harsh retort against manga in the show, and then show that the fan of manga is this bad guy, it was sad, and I was disappointed. And also, it actually showed me that that they talk about at Otakon, there is still some of that left. There's still a prejudice against manga and anime. And I don't think it's a deep-running prejudice. I think overall, Americans just don't think anime and manga are cool, right? So there's this overall thread within America where there's kind of a cool. I think you would connotate it to mainstream and accepted by most people with a little bit of edge, right? And I think when people think of cool, manga and anime are the farthest thing from that, and I think that's kind of sad. It's sad that people aren't more open to manga and anime. So my point is, so basically, I'm a fan of anime itself, and there are some great animes out there. I think Cowboy Bebop is a good anime. Outlaw Star is a very good anime. Mobile Suit Gundam, there's tons of great anime within that sphere. In addition to that, Star Blazers, Space Cruiser Battleship, Space Battleship Yamato 2199 is an absolute fantastic anime that's out there. Redline, really good anime. There's just a ton of really good ones out there. Mushishi is another excellent anime. So there are really good animes out there, and these are anime that I think present a very good story in a way that is engaging, and that no one needs to feel that that's not something that they should feel like that's a shame that something they're watching, right? Now, also, just to be clear, because I am a big anime fan, I'm recognizing that there's a trend within the United States of America to bring over anime and make it very American, right? So there are American forms of anime, and ironically, many anime fans stick their nose up at American anime, right? Now, the two biggest American animes right now are Avatar: Last Airbender. That is a I would say it's near flawless show. It's absolutely fantastic. It's one of the best shows I've ever seen, and that doesn't. And when I say it's that Avatar: Last Airbender is one of the best shows I've ever seen, that means it's one of the best shows I've ever seen, regardless of whether it's anime, regardless of whether it's a cartoon show, regardless of any type. It's just an incredibly good story, told at a really good pace, told for an extended period of time, told with amazing characters. It's really good, and that is a show that people who are America or America adjacent have created that for an American audience, and it's heavily influenced by anime. And then also Voltron Legendary Defender. Definitely highly recommend Voltron Legendary Defender as well. A lot of really good stuff. I also, of course, recommend everything that Studio Ghibli has done, especially the things that have been brought over by Disney. That's another one where that stuff is really accessible, and it's all 100% accessible to families, right? Some of the other anime that I would suggest is Escaflowne. Escaflowne is a really excellent. It's an excellent anime. It's a great show to watch. There are quite a few out there. So, and then also, if you are an anime fan and you've never been to Otakon, I would highly suggest considering going to Otakon. Otakon is moving this year from Baltimore to Washington, D.C. We're really curious how that's going to work out, and it should be very interesting. But I was really just shocked by this one moment within the Sneaky Pete show. And it really confirmed a lot of things I'd heard at panels at Otakon, that prejudice was out there. So I was really surprised to see it so starkly shown. And I think the writers of Sneaky Pete were David Shore, who did NYPD Blue and some other shows, and also Bryan Cranston. And I was just, it was a great show. I really enjoyed it. I for what it was, a show about con artists, I thought it was excellently done. But this one point, I was just really disappointed that they put it in the way they did. That's it. Take care, everybody.